Welcome back to World History. We're starting up on Roman numeral II, Imperialism in the East. During the Age of Exploration, Europe saw its colonies as sources of wealth. By the late 19th century, Europeans found maintaining these colonies, of which most wanted independence, financially draining. Free trade policies were replacing mercantilism. Revolts in Europe also diminished the interest in overseas empires. But near the end of the 1800s, there was a revival in the desire for colonies. Imperialism, here's a definition for you. This new form of empire building was the extension of power by one country over another country. The extension of power by one country over another country. This fierce rivalry over empire building would eventually lead to World War I. Letter A. Reasons for imperialism. Why did it happen? Now, all of the reasons do not apply to all of the countries involved. Some countries were interested in a couple of these reasons, and other countries for other reasons, just depended on the country. Number one, expansion of industrialization and need for raw materials and new markets. European nations did not want to be dependent on each other for their raw materials. Protective tariffs also were intended to prevent such trade from taking place. Number two, intense nationalism and pride. An overseas empire brought national honor and prestige. New countries like Germany and Italy could show off their newfound strength. Imperialism allowed the European nations to exercise their energy without having to fight wars with each other. Yet. Number three, humanitarianism. Europe felt themselves superior to the cultures of Asia and Africa. Many felt it their responsibility to share the fruits of Western culture like education, medical care, industry, and technology with the rest of the world. They did successfully improve education, abolish slavery, and stamp out disease and famine in many of their colonial territories. Yet many of the natives who received these blessings objected to the superior attitude held by most Westerners. Number four, the spread of Christian missions. The 19th century is considered the great century of Christian missions. As countries built overseas empires, Christians became acquainted with the spiritual needs of people in distant lands. For the most part, the imperialism was initiated by ungodly men and for ungodly motives. Yet God used the wrath of God, so he says in the Bible, for his praise. Imperialism was a means by which the gospel was spread to the far corners of the globe. Letter B. Asia. While the Americas were conquered with relative ease, in account to the sparsely populated regions, Asia was heavily populated and home to strong ancient cultures. While Western technology would prove superior in conquering these lands, it was more difficult to establish Western culture. Today we're going to talk about the region of India. After Vasco da Gama's discovery of an all-water route to India, the British and French established trading settlements there. This lasted until the collapse of the Mughal Empire in the 1700s. And out of the chaos, both Britain and France saw an opportunity to take all of India for themselves. The climax of the conflict between Britain and France took place during the 7 Years' War at the Battle of Plassey. This decisive battle was the one that decided who would control. The main man responsible for winning the battle for, by the way, Britain, was Robert Clive. Robert Clive was the leader of the British forces, and they defeated the French and Indian forces located there. In the end, Britain gained control of all of India. Britain established the British East India Company in India. It became the dominant authority in India for the next 100 years. It was primarily a commercial organization, and it allowed the Indian tribes to rule themselves for the most part, but soon some Indians decided to rebel. It was known as the Sepoy Mutiny. Sepoys were native Indian troops working for the company. That's what you need to write down. The immediate cause for the mutiny, which you also want to write down, had to do with the new rifle cartridges. These cartridges, the ends of which had to be bitten off, were greased with sheep fat to keep the powder dry. It was rumored, however, that the grease used was cow or pig fat. So what? What's the big deal? Well, for Indians, it is a big deal. Hindu Indians considered the cow sacred, and Muslim Indians considered the pig unclean. So, the mutiny started. Before anyone could really calm it down, it erupted into conflict for the next year. Although bloody, the mutiny was short and put down by the British troops. End result, Britain will assume control of Indian affairs. After the Sepoy Mutiny, the British government took control of India from the company. A viceroy governed India. Queen Victoria became known as the Empress of India. The British also began to provide for the Indian people sanitation and medical care, improved roads and railroads, and factories and schools were built. All of these changes brought India toward modernization, as well as gave them a desire for self-rule too. Please, in your books, turn to page 420. 420, please read the orange box concerning William Carey in India. Once you have finished reading that box, actually, you'll be done for the notes today. I know, shorter lesson today. Hopefully you all did take that first quiz for this chapter. And then we will pick up tomorrow with the rest of Imperialism. Hope you all have a good rest of the day. Be good, do good. Bye.